Welcome, everyone, and thank you for attending this event as part of our Global Entrepreneurship Week celebration. We have several other events scheduled for this week. Today, on Tuesday and Thursday, we have entrepreneurial speakers who are coming to tell you their stories. And hopefully you can get some information from the lessons they have learned, and so that you don't have to repeat what they have done, or you can repeat what they have done if it's been very successful. On Wednesday, we have 1 Million Cups at 9 a.m. And in the evening, we have a free webinar about how to raise your credit score so you can apply for a business loan. And on Friday, we're going to have an entrepreneurial trivia game where you can come and test your knowledge, and you may just win a prize or two. So some housekeeping things before we get started. If you're viewing this with a class, because I know some of you have class at this time, if you would in the chat, just put what class, and we'd love to know that you have joined us. So if you could just type in the chat the name of your class, that would be great, or other group. If after the speaker has concluded the presentation, we will do some Q&A. So in the meantime, while she's speaking, if you have questions, you can put in the chat, and we'll answer those at the end of the presentation. And at the end of the presentation, when we go into Q&A, you can either type your question in the chat, or you can unmute and ask her yourself. So we have lots of options. But if you will take a moment and make sure you are muted so that we can all focus on Pamela's story. And Lori, would you like to introduce today's speaker?
I would be delighted to do so. Today we have Miss Pamela Hayward with SOS Life Sciences. Wow, the epitome of an entrepreneur, right? So I'm excited and looking forward to hearing Pamela talk, and I think you will be too. You guys, if you don't mind, if you'll turn your camera on and let us see your faces. Sometimes it's a little easier when we talk to people other than just to a name. So without further ado, let us welcome Pamela. Pamela, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Lori. I really appreciate it. And I'm honored to be here today. I'm going to be extremely transparent with my story. That's the way I've always been in business. I didn't have a business background, so I had to learn to be an entrepreneur on my own. And so I've always kind of been an entrepreneur with other businesses that I've had. But mine was, more of necessity as the mother of invention. So I have 4 children, and my 2 oldest daughters have type 1 diabetes. So the girls would turn to juice and candy, which is a different sugar that has to be converted into glucose. And glucose is what feeds our brain. And I would notice that it would take longer to bring their blood sugar up because of the sugar has to be converted. And it would delay bringing their blood sugar up. They would overtreat the condition, and their blood sugar would spike. So they would be on an imbalanced blood sugar roller coaster, all day. So we were skiing one time, and anything can affect your blood sugar levels. So at this particular time, it happened to be the barometric pressure in the atmosphere. So we were at the bottom of the gondola. Both the girls had eaten, and they're like, my blood sugar's low. And I'm like, oh man, we had to take all their ski clothes off. Now that's a real big pain. Plus you're force feeding your kids after they've already eaten a full breakfast. And we got back to the gondola and just watched it, coming down to pick us up. And I was like, okay, how am I going to make sure when my children are away from me, they can make it back safely to me? They can't carry juice up the mountain. Candy, could freeze. Crackers would crumble. What am I going to do? And it just hit me. I started thinking about BC powder and stand back. I don't know why. I've never used them before, but I thought about a powder delivery and how it's absorbed so quickly into your bloodstream. So I said, okay, I'm going to do a powdered glucose. And that's how it all started. So next, you've got to make a prototype, right? Mistake number 1. I went out on Google to look for manufacturers that developed powder prototypes. I found one in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I will not be mentioning the name. And he started, okay, well, it's going to cost $10,000 for this. And then it was additional $5,000 for this. And I'm like, whoa, I got up to about $25,000. I was paying this man for a prototype, and I had nothing to show for it. I had sold my rings that I had, I was selling things just to, get this prototype so I could go out and start selling it. But at the end of the day, I had nothing. I actually had made a deal with him, and we negotiated. He did give me some of the money back, but that taught me a very good lesson because I had no idea you didn't pay for prototypes. So then I met a company called Fortitech in New York. They're a huge global company. And I said, look, I have an idea. This is what I want. I want a powder that dissolves in your mouth. So there needs to be a flowing agent in there that helps it absorb in the buccal and into the bloodstream. It has to be all natural. These are the flavors I want to develop. And they're like, I also want to adhere to the American Diabetes Association 15-gram guidelines for treating low blood sugar, because that does eliminate blood sugar spiking because it's a very controlled approach. And I said, so I want them, I want a 15-gram serving size. Well, all of a sudden I started getting, they set up my account, every different prototype you can imagine. I didn't pay a dime, nothing. So this went on for months in development. And then I had to come to the packaging. So I knew that I wanted a 15-gram serving. So I had to understand packaging. So I called all packaging manufacturers, just utilizing Google, and found one that was also in New York that had explained to me the packaging. You need a foil packaging with a nitrogen flush in it to prevent your product from oxidizing. I'm like, okay. And I said, I want it to be as small as it can. Okay. So they created a prototype for me. And then I'm like, what am I going to put these cartons in? These foil packets in. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm going to use a carton. I don't know why. I started Googling packaging material and actually went out to different carton manufacturers and found one that I've been working with ever since called Bellmark that was able to provide the foil and the cartons for me. So the next step was you either have to raise capital, which I had no idea how to do anything like that. And, put together a pretty extensive business plan. And I didn't want to do that either. So I'm like, okay, well, I need to take on a different partnership. And I found a partner through LinkedIn who was someone that promised to take a product from an innovation state from the beginning, and they would do all the marketing, sales. They had one entrepreneur that would fund the project. And after talking to them for about 9 months, I finally agreed to sign the contract. And one thing I totally advise everyone not to do, don't get too excited and put the cart before the horse and sign a contract out of desperation. I felt like this was my only option. Had I known it wasn't my only option. So in about 2 years into this business relationship, I actually flew out to Utah and met them. Everything seemed great. We started selling. I was pretty much doing all the trade shows and selling myself. We certainly were not in the B2B retailers that I'm in now or B2C, but we were trying to hit the emergency kit companies first because they looked like they were like low-hanging fruit. But 2 years into the contract, there was a major breach. And here I'm going through a divorce. I have now, my business idea has crumbled. It was such a breach of contract, I had to go to my attorney and I had to walk away. So here I had my new product launched on the market, and now I've had to walk away from it. Had nothing to do with it. Well, okay, pick yourself back up from the bootstraps and start over. You have a dream and you got to be tenacious and keep moving forward. Well, that I did with a vengeance. So I took on another partner, and I got to tell you, this happens. It's very common that you take on partners that are not successful. That's okay. You just have to move forward till you find the right ones. I took another partner, and I got my first PO for a large retailer, and it was for Ingalls. They're in Black Mountain, North Carolina. So I had already, at the time I got the PO, I had already manufactured like 5,000 pounds of glucose from one manufacturer. My manufacturer in Florida had already bought all the packaging components of, the foils and the cartons and everything ready to go. And I had to go to them because my new partner said, I'm not going to pull the trigger on this PO until you start getting more POs. I'm like, no, that's not what our agreement was. So I decided to be honest, and I went to both my manufacturers. I explained the situation to them, and you know what they said to me? They're like, you know what, Pamela, we're going to support you. We're going to move forward. We're going to manufacture this batch because we know you'll pay us back. I couldn't believe it. And they stood beside me. And so that was my first time of saying, you know what, there's people that believe in you, and it gave me that power to keep moving forward. So I did. Once I received the inventory, I was able to go out and utilize, because I had already received, the PO from one retailer. That enabled me to go to the other retailers and explain my story. And I never had like a fancy presentation. I literally just went to the corporate headquarters via, their corporate number, asked who the buyer was in my category. I knew what my category was. And then, I was able to connect with the buyer, said, this is who I am, introduced myself, told them about my product. I did have a presentation online. It was just a PDF. And finally, some of them, it took 2 years, some of them, it took 3 years to get into, but I never gave up. So now I'm growing my business, and things are going pretty well. And like I said, I was able to get into, more B2B retailers because of the first one that I had. And my second retailer, and this is very important, this is when you want to grow faster than you're financially capable of doing, and it can sink you. So I finally got into Walmart US. And we were manufacturing, and it was actually through the Hurricane Florence, so we had to evacuate the island. I'm at Wrightsville Beach, so I was manufacturing with no power or whatever, Walmart US for the first time. And Walmart came in and they took one SKU of my product and they forecasted 9,800 units monthly. That is insane. My product is sitting on the shelf. It does not have a global presence at all or any kind of brand recognition, because I'm basically brand new, and it's sitting on the shelf like ET. And in doing business with Walmart, they get you down to the bottom line price. You're barely making any money. And then you've got to get you take from your fulfillment center, distribution center, you have to ride along in a vendor pool. So the product had to be shipped to New Jersey in order to ride in these vendor pools, because you were scored in Walmart's called an OTIF score to see if they're even going to continue to do business with you. So you've got to be on time every single time delivering to their DCs. So this vendor pool is costing you additional money as well. So we get all that worked out and the product's on the shelf. Well, I never heard of phantom inventory issues in my entire life. But Walmart, in calling some of the pharmacy locations, 6 months into my product being there, some of them had not even set the product on the shelves yet. So you really, in doing business with Walmart, you need these companies that come in-house and do, demos. They will not let you put, there's supposed to be a new item set up on there. They won't let you put your own, new and tags like that on the shelves. So anyway, there's no way, again, we could have held up to the 9,800 units per month. The tablets were only doing about, not even 500 a month. So long story short, after about a year, we ended up having a conversation with the buyer, and we ended up just continuing to be a vendor, but at the Walmart.com level. So that's lesson number 2. Don't grow too fast, because we were not ready for that at all. Will I try them again? Absolutely, because I'm in a different position. So I started then creating my second product, which is Glucose SOS for pets. So now that I know I don't have to pay for a prototype, I went out and developed the prototype. And I looked online for one of the largest manufacturer of diabetes products for pets with diabetes. And it was the Advocate product line. So I reached out to them and I was like, hey, I've got an idea. I want to co-brand my pet product. We'll on a co-branding agreement with you. So that would mean that I would get paid a royalty per unit sold. So now I'm in a different situation. I'm co-branding because they've got distribution. They can pay for the manufacturing, and I just get paid per unit for each unit that's sold. So we got the manufacturing agreement put in place, and lo and behold, one of the largest pharmaceutical companies in the space reached out to me And I'd been in communication with them for a while as a potential distributor for my product. And they said, look, I said, would you be interested in distributing Glucose SOS? He goes, actually, we're not interested in that. We want to buy your company. And I'm like, and we want you to fly down next weekend. I'm like, oh my God, like, this is just unbelievable. So I flew down to Florida. I met with the president and everyone in the room, and they wined and dined me, and it was great. They gave me a verbal offer. Mistake that I made, I came back and I immediately engaged in a large attorney's office in Atlanta. And they started having other people come involved, and they actually said my company was worth X, and it was nowhere worth that at all. But then they were getting greedy. So you've got a lot of testosterone in the room. Excuse me, men, because I'm not just referring to men, but they started literally fighting over me. This is what we want, and we're not going to back down. We're not going to agree to your terms. And it ended up making the president mad. And the president's like, well, then I'm not going to move forward with this deal at all. So there I'm now out $15,000. The deal's off the table. And I learned that I could have negotiated that deal myself. The president kept saying, why are you not on the phone talking to me direct like we did before? We can work this out. And I felt like I needed to get other people involved. Now, you do have to get attorneys involved at a certain time to draw up the documents, legal documents and contracts, but not at first. I think people prefer you to negotiate with them and be honest and work out a deal, and then get your attorneys to draw up the agreement. So now I've got, after that happened, the company that co-branded my pet version came back to me and said, we want equity in your company. And with that being said, we will pay you a license agreement. We will do all the marketing and manufacturing for Glucose SOS. We will run all the financial infrastructure of your business. We want 20% equity, agree to X amount. And all we want you to do is create new products and sell. That's all you want to do. I'm like, this is exactly what I've been looking for. And they were the best business partners, or are the best business partners in the whole world. Honest, supportive. They've allowed me to go out and grow the business and get all the B2B retailer accounts that I have, the new distributors that we have. So then I developed my third product, and my third product was in R&D for about a year and a half. And it is a freeze-dried product, and there's only a couple of manufacturers in the US that do this. So I went to the one that actually manufactured the yogurt melts for Gerber and Happy Family. You've probably seen them in the baby section. And after they told me no for a year and a half, I was having someone else do the R&D, and then they told me they would move forward with the project. So a year and a half went by. We had prototypes. We've been sending, and I had signed a co-branding agreement. Excuse me, I left out something very, very important. The company that tried to buy my company that I walked away from, I reached back out to them and said, hey, I've developed my third product. It's very sexy technology. Nothing like it exists. I think it could cannibalize the tablet market. Do you want to sign a license agreement? So I sent them prototypes, and they said yes. And it was the most simplest agreement I've ever put together in my entire life. I'm like, here are my cost of goods for the product. They'd already sampled all the samples. I want a 30% margin off each unit that you order. I want you to pay for all the manufacturing, marketing, distribution. I just want that 30% margin royalty on each unit that you order. They signed it. That was it. So here I've got the largest deal on the table with a 2.4 million annual forecast for the first year, 7.8 for the next year. They're in all the major retailers in the US. And the manufacturer, about 2 weeks before we were trying to get a manufacturing agreement put together that I'd sent to them, they refused to sign it for whatever reason. They just did. And they walked away. And this was on a Friday afternoon, and I just buried my head in my desk. I'm like, this is the biggest opportunity in my life. And I know that I've set my business up to have this big pharma company buy me. in the next 2 years. I knew that that was going to happen. We'd even talked about it, given on first right of refusal. But now I don't have a freeze-dried manufacturer. And this was the only one I knew in the US. So by that Monday, I had gotten out about 3 CDAs sent out. And I finally found the perfect manufacturer. So they're in New Jersey. They created even a better prototype than the other person had. So it seems that each time that you fail, you're catapulted to a higher position, honestly. There is no such thing as failing. It's finding plan B. You always have to have a plan B. And so now we've got, the company set up. We're going to be launching the 3rd product extension. The first retailer that signed up for it is CVS. Walgreens is another one that signed up. So we're going to be launching at the top of the food chain instead of where I started at the bottom and worked my way up. And like I said, I think I've pretty much positioned my company to have this company buy me again for the second time within the next few years. So it's very exciting. But that's kind of my entrepreneurial story. And like I said, I feel like, you don't ever, oh, hold on. There was something really important I forgot to. There was very exciting news. And I just want to share this. I received an email from about 2 or 3 months ago from one of the sharks on Shark Tank. And I thought it was a joke. So I responded back to them and I was like, how much is this going to cost me? What are you, trying to do, whatever. And they're like, it's not going to cost you anything. It just so happens the shark's son's daughter-in-law has type 1 diabetes, has been using your product for I don't know how long. And we're looking for our next product to market direct to consumer. Well, that wasn't a market that I was ever successful or even tried in. So we went through they sent me a contract and they would create their own website, sales funnel, whatever. And they would reach out to all the direct to consumers and they had even retail capability. It's like, when a shark calls, people listen to them, right? But they sent me over a contract and I just redlined that thing like crazy. They're like, no one has ever redlined our documents, but our contracts before. I'm like, I'm not signing this. I'm going to protect myself and I know how to protect myself in the correct way now. So, instead of rolling this separate business because they wanted 10% equity in my company. So instead of rolling it under my corporation, I set up a separate LLC. So that with the melt deal that I'm working on with the big pharma company and everything else, all of those deals are safe under my corporation. But this deal with the sharks, if it didn't work, it didn't work. If they build out equity in this LLC that had nothing in it, then great. That's what we were going to do. So we've already had our kickoff meeting. Shark was on a Zoom call and I felt like this is the strangest thing to see someone like that you see on TV sitting across from you, actually talking to you and asking you about your business and your product. But we've given a list of things to do and we have another meeting with next steps next week. So life is very interesting. And I would say that if anyone is ever interested in being an entrepreneur, be prepared to work Monday through Sunday. Be tenacious and never give up, never make decisions out of desperation because it's probably going to be a bad one. And just also remember, failing is good because once you do fail, I promise you, it'll catapult you to the next level. You'll end up being in the position that you need to be. You just have to be patient.
Okay, thank you, Pamela. That was very interesting. And it sounds like you're going lots and lots of places. So we're going to open everything up to Q&A. So if anybody has a question, feel free to either type it in the chat or unmute and ask. But I would have to ask this one question. You got some budding entrepreneurs that are sitting out here. What is the one thing for somebody just starting out that you would tell them?
Can you hear us, Pamela?
Yeah. Oh, was she talking to me? I thought she was asking. I'm sorry. I thought she was talking to all the other entrepreneurs, what they would say. The one, stay the course. And it's not going to be easy. It's going to take time. And you just have to be patient and never give up. And it's those days that you're really drugged down and you're like, oh my God, I don't know how I can go on, because you just heard you've lost an account, or you've been calling on this account, they chose someone else for their reset. It's okay, because there's always another opportunity around the corner, and you don't give up, and make really wise decisions with your business partners. You are going to have business partners that are not going to be good for you, but those are business partners that you're going to learn from. So like I said, again, don't be afraid of failing, because that's a good thing. And just never give up. And also, I think one thing that really helped me is I'm really good at reaching out to people and learning a lot about, like the ADA and JDRF with my holistic family, getting them involved in my venture, and just reaching out to companies and learning a lot about every manufacturing facility you could use till you find the best ones. You have to really gain a lot of knowledge in what you do. I know that's not one answer, but it's hard to say one thing. But I guess the one thing I would say is just never give up.
Okay. Carlos in the chat wants to know why the motivation to potentially sell your company.
Because I've been doing this for a while, and I know what the company could be valued at. So what I would like to do is do what I enjoy the most, which is developing additional product lines. And I would like to license them to contacts that I have, so that I'm just getting royalties off of products that I develop.
Christina wants to comment, said, I love your product. Also, the purpose behind it that pushed you to want to make that product is really amazing, especially for pets.
Thank you. Thank you.
So Pamela, what would you say your greatest challenge has been with SOS Life Sciences? You could only pick one.
Marketing, having enough financing for marketing. And with that being said, I got on Instagram, and I had never been on Instagram in my entire life. But I just basically built my Instagram account because I started corresponding with a lot of the people in my holistic family, and I became very real to them, almost as a mother figure, and supporting them by giving them free product, doing a lot of giveaways. Next thing you know, right now I have like 40,000 followers, and I'm highly involved in my community. But what that does for me is I wake up almost every day with a direct message from someone, which is a testimony of, I love your product, I use it. It raised my blood sugar within five minutes, and my blood sugar didn't spike. And those I don't pay for those testimonies. I just get those on a daily basis, and it's a beautiful thing. I feel like Instagram, social media like that is really important, but I think with having the sharks involved, they're actually going to take over my Instagram. And this is going to be the answer to my prayers regarding the financing for marketing. They're going to be doing videos, all kinds of really, really fancy marketing that I couldn't do. And I think that's going to be really great for the company.
Will you appear on Shark Tank, an episode of Shark Tank?
No, because because if you're on there, you're pitching your product, but they came to me. So I didn't have to pitch it. I pitched it online and through Zoom. That's how I pitched it.
Okay.
Well, Christina would like to know, where do you see yourself in the next 5 years with your company?
Well, my company will be sold, and I'll be living on a farm with cows and pigs and sheep and goats, and just doing what I said, doing like I like to do, which is developing additional products and probably continuing licensing them to the same company that I think will be the one that will buy my company.
Well, it seems that your spark or your true calling is the innovation part. So where do you get that innovation from? What inspires you? What helps you to come up with these new ideas?
I've always been, I worked in corporate America for a while, but then when I was in Atlanta, I was an entrepreneur. One kind of interesting thing about me, I designed Halle Berry's baby bedding. and it was filmed on Access Hollywood. So I've had some pretty cool entrepreneurial experiences, but this one was different. They were all kind of fun things. I made money, but not like my company. It was just for the purpose of saving my daughter's lives. It was watching them in near-death episodes. And I had to have something, when they're that low, having seizures, they're combative. You're trying to pour juice down their throat. I mean, there's a glucagon, but I promise you, I want to stay away from that thing. It scares me to death. And there's also calling the EMS, but I've never thankfully had to do it. I've always been able to bring them out by literally pouring stuff down their throat, which they could choke. And with my product, you don't have to do that. I've gotten my daughter out of a full-blown seizure before, just because the powder does directly dissolve in your mouth. And just knowing that I have that to save their lives is something that I'm very proud of. It makes me really happy as a mother. It's like giving them a security blanket when I'm not with them.
So Mark would like to know about the patent on your products.
I did not patent the powder, and I wasn't sure that I was going to be able to get a patent for that, but I am patenting the glucose melts.
Well, as someone who has witnessed someone to go down when the sugar drops, it is a very scary experience. It is nice to see that you have a product that will bring it back up so quickly, because it's a very, very scary time.
Definitely is. I did copyright my brand. I copyrighted Mom on a Mission. And then I trademarked Glucose SOS all over the world. And that can be very, very, very expensive, but I did. Actually, my business partners did that. That was part of our agreement. So again, that's why it's very wise to have honest business partners that help you grow, like mine have done. So.
You've mentioned your business partners a few times. Where did you find them?
When I found them, when I developed the pet SOS, and I looked up online who had the strongest presence in the market for pets with diabetes, and it was my business partners. But had I known, I just went to them to co-brand and license the pet product I'd already developed to them. But what a coincidence that, as it turns out, I didn't know that they were going to end up, when the other deal didn't work out with the company buying my company, I had no idea that they were actually going to be my business partners and would help me get to the finish line like they are doing right now. So, but one thing also I want to tell you, you think that having a business that you make all this money and whatever, I put every dime back into my business. So I take just a small draw. So I am not right now, I guess, in the reason I do want to sell the company is I've lived like that for a long time. And there's a lot of sacrifices you have to make to grow your business. That's why it's important. I've set it up so that I can sell it, so I can finally be able to relax a little bit and breathe and not work Monday through Sunday. So
I think you had a good point where you said that you looked to see who had the largest market share. How did you get in touch with them?
I just, like I always do with everyone, I just call the corporate number. And like if I'm calling like a retailer to buy my brand, then I'll ask who my buyer is from the corporate office, and they'll either give me their email address or their phone number. But with looking up the Advocate product line, I just knew they were in the company's called Pharma Supply, and they're in Wellington, Florida. And I called and spoke to the president of the company and said, this is what I have, sent them a sample. And then we went back and forth probably for about 9 months. And then we signed a co-branding agreement, a license agreement. And that's kind of how it happened.
And so Selena wants to know, is your product available to the school system?
I tried going through the school systems. It was very difficult because a lot of them would say to me, well, we don't have that many diabetics in the school, but there are emergency kits in the schools. And I have not been able to tap into that, although I have tapped into the emergency kit arena. And I have a company that has emergency kits that they're selling for people with diabetes in the Philippines. So COVID kind of delayed that project, but it's a pretty big deal. I think they're going to be manufacturing like 350,000 kits for them initially, and they're looking into the millions. And that would be great because I would be manufacturing. I would just be selling the instead of the carton with the 6 packets in there. The cartons are behind me. It'd be a different business model where I'd be selling individual packets of glucose SOS to the emergency kit. So probably it would be a case of 400 individual packets, and that saves money on the manufacturing. And I think you have to be flexible in your business model. Like when we've created the melts, which would be my third product that will be launched, we're using the same cartons that are in the background, but they're perforated. And there's going to be 5 15-gram packets of those melts in there. And so when I say perforated, the whole top will come off of the product, and you're able to sell not only the cartons of 5, but you're also able to sell the individual packets. I am a vendor of Dollar Tree, so we created a counter display that actually holds 25 individual packets. So we'll be selling the individual packets in Dollar Tree, for $1 each. So you have to be flexible, and it's best to have different business models like that.
We have a couple of questions. Tiffany would like to know, can you provide any tips for work-life balance since the business requires so much of your time?
Yeah, it's difficult for me because I am a single mom, and I basically have to do everything myself. But at the end of the day, when you're working, I work from home, then go out and take a break. Water your grass, water your flowers, go take a walk. I mean, you're able to do those kind of things just to get out of your office. And I shut it down. I shut it down at like 5:30 or 6. So when I say I work on the weekends, it's because I'm getting phone calls. I'm having to deal with Amazon issues, but they don't last that long. But I am available to answer any questions and to do things I need to. But you just have to, like I said, take breaks, go for walks, clear your head, do things that you love to do in between, so you're not burned out, and know when to kind of stop. And if you have meetings at night, have them, but I try to schedule everything during the day.
And I think we're going to have a couple of questions from Jesse Bellflowers. He's got a couple of questions from a high school class, but I don't see them yet. Jesse, you want to tell her, ask her?
Jesse, you're muted.
All right, there we go. Okay. All right. Yeah, I had to take it off, both of them. Hi, Pamela.
Hi.
Hey, great presentation. I have a room full of high school students that have listened to your presentation. They have a couple of questions. I'm just going to ask the questions on their behalf. The first one is, what tips would you share with these future entrepreneurs or a senior class in business when they're looking for partners to work with their business? And the second question, what tips would you share with them for raising capital for a product?
Ooh. Tips for business partners. It depends if you, I would say, first of all, I'd have to say it depends on if you want to raise capital, which I did not do. I said I did not raise capital. I was looking for a business partner that would take it from cradle to grave. So basically someone that would take my prototype and provide the marketing, the distribution, and the financing, which I did. And I did make a mistake with that. But there are companies that do that. You just literally have to talk to them over and over again. And you have to have a good relationship like I said, don't ever sign anything under pressure. So you have to know exactly, if you are looking for a licensing agreement with a company, what you want out of that license agreement, and be direct. So my first time of signing an agreement, I was desperate. And I took a very low percentage of gross sales, and I shouldn't have done that. It ended up that relationship didn't work out. But what I learned in my third licensing agreement, which I just negotiated, I just went to the company and I said, look, here's my product. These are my cost of goods. And I want a 30% margin on everything that you order. I want you to pay for all the manufacturing costs, which was new to me because I've always had to do that myself. And I want you to do all the marketing and distribution. So I laid out exactly what I was giving them and what I wanted in return. I laid out what I wanted from them and what I wanted in return. And you know what? I was scared to present that to them, but they're like, that's fine. And I think licensing agreements in what I am used to, my license agreement has been, and co-branding agreements to me is what catapulted me to a higher position, because I did not want to raise capital. And that's because I didn't know how to raise capital. So.
Okay, thank you.
Oh.
Laura is watching with her high school class as well. She has 2 questions. What is your education background? We logged in late, so they missed that part. No, you did not miss that part. We didn't ask her, but they'd like to know what's your education background, and would you do anything differently when you were in high school now that you're an entrepreneur? That's a good question.
That's a great question. I graduated with a BS in psychology from the University of Georgia. It had nothing to do with me being an entrepreneur. That spirit was inbred in me, like from the day I've learned from my father. It's kind of always been in my blood. I've watched my father do a lot of things like that. So it's something I was very passionate about from a young child. And I worked in corporate America in the accounting department for many, many, many years until I decided to make a different decision to go out on my own and being an entrepreneur. And would I do anything differently in high school? No, because you're a different person in high school. You should enjoy your high school, make good grades, focus on that, and focus on your future with college and going to school and making good grades. There's a time and place, I think, for everything, and you have to take life one step at a time. I wasn't mature enough in high school or college to be able to do what I'm doing right now. So it does, some people are different in the way that their maturity level is. But I wanted to have fun. And so I would say, I definitely would not do anything differently in high school. It didn't have anything to do with me being an entrepreneur right now. So.
Well, I have to say, I truly love how you talk about everything that you've been through has been a lesson learned. Good or bad, you have learned something from it. But then I have to ask, is there anything you would have done differently now if you'd have known back then that you could have done differently?
No, because I had to fail in order to be where I am now. It is not an easy path. And I can tell you, I probably don't know of any entrepreneurs that have not stumbled and fallen and had to pick themselves back up. So had I not been through those things, had I not been through life circumstances of a divorce, a single mom, 2 kids with type 1, I mean, things just kept coming, but I'm a very strong person. I'm resilient. I'm thankful for a lot of things in my life. So I have a lot of hope to keep moving forward. And I think just that mindset kept me going. And so, no, I feel like it's very important for you to fail. You have to.
So Carlos has a suggestion for you, maybe Pamela. This could be your next invention. He says he knows he's asking a lot, but could you develop a product for arthritis? It's for his mother. Arthritis is definitely a debilitating disease. Do you think that you will continue to think of more innovative, creative, outside of the box ideas to come up with different products in the future, Pamela?
Yes, and that's very sweet. I'm sorry your mother has arthritis. But that honestly, when you develop a product, you have to really have a lot of knowledge about it. And I personally don't have a lot of knowledge about arthritis. I think probably the next one area that I would probably step my foot in, I have an idea is your immune system, something that boosts your immune system. I had quite an interesting experience, believe it or not, with my cat. And my cat was born with upper respiratory infection. And I went to the doctor and spent thousands of dollars on her. And I know that sounds like that's not a big deal, but the cat gets stopped up. She can't breathe. It costs a lot of money to go to the vet. And I can't mention what it is. I happened to find a product that has finally cured her, and it's in a liquid form. And I had never heard of it before. And I myself have psoriatic arthritis, but I've only had 2 flare-ups. But they found it, believe it or not, on my fingernail. And they thought my fingernail had a nail fungus, and it didn't. It was psoriatic arthritis. But I applied the same treatment to my nail as what I gave to my cat, who is now cured. And guess what? My nail is completely 1,000 times better. So I'm really, really racking my brain right now and talking to some of my manufacturers about a new product to put it in a different format beside the liquid, probably maybe the freeze dried again. And I think it'll be a very exciting product. I'm really happy with the results I've been getting. In shock, because even my nail, I spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars on really expensive steroid creams for my doctors. Nothing ever penetrated my nail. But this particular product, which is only one ingredient involved in it, worked for me. And I get goosebumps thinking about it. That kind of stuff is just so exciting for me. I just get so excited.
So I'm thinking I'm seeing a new invention coming. As far as upper respiratory for cats, I work a lot in cat rescue. Upper respiratory is something that a cat suffers with. Many of them will be born with an upper respiratory infection. If you see cats that are blind, most of the time it's scarred the cornea. They use a lot of L-lysine for upper respiratory in cats, but I can tell you now that if you could come up with something that would a cat would like and take willingly and not scratch you up, that would cure or prevent upper respiratory infection, you're going to be a multimillionaire.
Yeah, I did it. The L-lysine didn't work for my cat. Yeah, so this is something totally different. She takes it every day. She was born with it. I adopted her. She was a rescue.
Right.
So it's very exciting. Very exciting.
And so if they didn't tell you that upper respiratory does come from the herpes virus.
Right.
And usually once you have herpes, you will always have herpes, and the same with a cat. So it is a recurring thing that they do suffer with. So I'll be anxiously awaiting the product, Pamela.
Yeah. Well, I guess I would say they're not cured, but her symptoms have subsided just tremendously. She is not having breathing difficulties any longer. She's not doing that really nasty sneezing that they do. But even what I've seen with my own fingernail, it's shocking to me that this penetrated my nail, and it's almost looking like it's almost normal again. Very strange.
We have a couple more questions in the chat. Christian would like to know, what is one thing you learned that helped you develop a product?
One thing that I've learned that helped me develop my product. I'm not quite sure. One thing that I learned that helped me develop my product. One thing that I talked about at first was when I set out to develop this with a manufacturer, I was paying $25,000 to $30,000 to have a prototype developed for me, but you don't have to do that. You can go to most manufacturers and explain to them what you want, and they will develop prototypes for you for free. So you just have to contact a manufacturer in your particular space. And that's, you find those manufacturers just on Google. Make a list. Like for me, it was like Googling powder manufacturers, and it gives you a whole list, and you just get on the phone and say, just start calling people. finding out information. Then somebody says yes, and then find out their pricing. You may have to go to someone else, compare pricing, but it's always about that. Even with manufacturing, I just had to change my manufacturing facility because of COVID. Our cost of goods quadrupled. And so I've had to completely just stop what I was doing to get a brand new manufacturer for run out for one of our flavors. But like I said, you can do that online. I do everything on Google and research a lot.
Okay, and Carlos would like to follow up a question, and I'm curious about this as well. What about FDA approval? Do you need FDA approval for that product?
No, and that's another thing. You have to know what category your product's in. So I knew that my product was considered a supplement, and supplements do not require FDA approval. And so you can, if you need to know if your product requires FDA, then again, there's resources online. You can contact them directly and find out if you need, FDA approval. So, but mine does not.
And Sherry would like to know what it is the advice you'd give to someone who doesn't have the startup money for starting a business.
If you have a product, I have an idea, I would say look at a company maybe that you can license your product to. That way you don't have to have the startup, and those companies will pay you a royalty for each unit sold. I don't know. Like I said, when I started, well, you can get a prototype made for whatever you do. I don't know what kind of business that you're looking at starting, but if it's a product, I would definitely look for companies that are in your same business arena, and I would look for someone to have a licensing agreement with for your product. If it's another type of company, I don't know. I don't have that experience because I don't have to pay for retail space or anything like that. I work out of my home. So, but I do, my business partners, the main part of my company is run out of Wellington, Florida. So, or you have a great idea, you can also do the same thing I did with the company that I co-branded my pet version with. When I sold them equity in my company. And you can do that if you've got a really great product. You can do that right off the bat. If you have someone that's really excited about it, you can sell equity. And like for me, my manufacturers or business partners in Florida run all the infrastructure of my company. They pay for all the marketing, the logistics, the distribution, everything. And so I just, continue to grow the business. That's what I do. And I just take a small salary, and that's what I do. So those are two choices. You can just look for someone in your same industry.
And Athena has posted in the chat a link for those of you who want to know about product types that need regulation. Pamela, this has been outstanding. I have learned a lot. I hope everybody else has learned a lot. It's great hearing your story. We heard you once before with 1 Million Cups in a slightly different way, more about your business. So it was interesting to hear about you from an entrepreneurial standpoint. We thank you for sharing your story. It has been truly interesting. I don't know if you know, but we kind of also helped make you famous because we took a soundbite out of your 1 Million Cup presentation. And Kent Hill and I presented at a national entrepreneurship conference and included your soundbite in that. So you have great advice to people. And that's one of the things that we wanted to show with the 1 Million Cups is how you have evolved and how companies can grow. So we thank you for that. We thank you for presenting today. It has really, I've learned a lot, and I hope everybody has as well. Don't forget, tomorrow we have 2 presenters at 1 o'clock again. We have the owner of, oh, help me, Lori.
Broadslab Distillery from Johnston County.
And
the
drop zone.
Yeah.
So you get 2 for the price of 1 tomorrow. Of course, the price was free. Tomorrow will be free as well. But Pamela, again, thank you so much. You are truly inspiring to listen to. And I think you have great advice to give to upcoming entrepreneurs. And I love how you learned a lesson from everything you've done. And you have, like you said, for every setback, you moved up. So that everybody needs to hear that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a very common thing. Anyone, I'm free to talk to anyone. I don't care who has my cell phone or my email address. You're welcome to give that out to anyone. If someone wants to call and talk to me about something, I'm happy to be there for them.
Well, thank you. And you had a couple of classes listening to you today, so they thank you as well.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it, Pamela. You are quite inspiring. I look forward to hearing more about the development for the cat upper respiratory infection. Such a problem there. And I know that you're going to solve it, because that's what entrepreneurs do. They solve problems, everyday problems. They think about things that we need and want before we ever even know we won't need them. So the true epitome of an entrepreneur. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. We'll be in contact. You guys, I'll see you later. Take care. See you tomorrow.
Oh,
Thank
and
you.
Pamela, we'd love to have you come back down the road and update us in 1 million cups about where you're at, because you're going in great places.
Yeah, thank you so
Absolutely.
much. It'd be my honor. I appreciate that.
And
Yeah,
on
we
the
want
side, I want to know what shark it was.
Huh?
we want to hear more about the Shark Tank.
Oh my God, I know. I'm so excited about that. I can't really say who it is, but like I said, it was just such a wow having them on that Zoom meeting. I wasn't expecting him to be on there. I thought it was going to be his team, and there's like a whole entourage of them. It is,
So we know it's a he.
it is,
So we know it's not Lori Greiner.
it is not Mr. Wonderful. I promise you that.
Okay.
That'd be a licensing deal. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, we will be in touch, Pamela. Take
Okay.
care.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank
Y'all have a
you.
good
Thank
day.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone
Thank
who came. Thank you.
Thank you.